Hey, what's up guys? This is Oakley, and what you'll notice immediately is I'm playing Mediveal II. This is actually some really awesome stuff. So the reason I'm playing it is, well, I had tried before, but it was really hard. Virtually no one was online. But what's changed actually recently that's enabled me to really play some Mediveal II games is GameSpy went down. So they used to be the ones you had to go through to play Mediveal II, so it was an old server, it was a bit clunky. But now actually Steam has taken that over because I think GameSpy has gone down. So the Mediveal II lobbies for multiplayer and as well for Rome 1 are now going to be hosted on Steam. So you're seeing a lot more people come online, so I definitely recommend you guys do check it out. It's really awesome. I'll be playing these games some more. Anyways, in terms of the strategy for this battle, I've only really played campaign in the past for Mediveal II, and I hardly remembered how the balance of units went. From my games and my recent experience as I was starting Mediveal II multiplayer, I found that cavalry is super strong, so you have to prepare for that. So I brought my own cav. Let's start with that. So mailed knights on the right, 2 feudal knights in the back, and then 2 mailed knights on the left, followed up by armored sergeants. I find backing up some of your wings with spearmen is definitely the way to go, especially with these armored sergeants who can pretty much hold their own, especially when you get them engaged with cav, and at least if they don't get the charge. Anyways, what I've done up front is I put sergeant, spearman, whatever, you get it, heavy spearman up front, backed up by some peasant crossbowmen. So they're my guys who are going to go up front and deal some initial damage, a spear wall to hopefully ward off cavalry, peasant crossbowmen to get the damage off, and then spaced off a little bit behind them are going to be a bunch of these really awesome looking dismounted knights. So I have these guys all on the back, and they even have a couple sergeant spearmen to guard them, and then also I kept the heavy cav back here. My opponent going for Milan has brought a lot of these cavalry units, and he's going to be deciding to just charge right on down the hill. I love Mediveal II's aesthetics. There's something so awesome about these huge mailed knight cavalry charges. But he's coming on straight down the hill. The rest of his troops are going to be kind of cheering him on. So I didn't quite expect my opponent to charge right off the bat, but he is going to anyways, which thankfully is why I have these spearmen here. My crossbowmen were on skirmisher mode, so they're going to be retreating. I am going to take that off as soon as possible just so I can start returning fire. But another reason why you should put your cav on the wings is in case this happens, you just collapse in on the opponent. So he's throwing in some of his units. Wisely, the rest of his cav is going to be going wide. And here I'm collapsing in, bringing out my reserve cav. So this is going to be a very, very hectic battle right from the start. So here he comes charging into my armored sergeants. They're meant mostly just to absorb these kind of charges and allow my knights, who otherwise wouldn't stand up to my opponent's superior cav, allow them to hold their own. So let's watch some of this combat. But like I was saying, you get your spearmen in the mix, backed up by cav, and you'll be able to rake up and really hold out against these cavalry charges, which would otherwise absolutely obliterate you. So here come my feudal knights, swooping in from all sides. I'm getting a lot of disruption here. And looks like I just killed the enemy general as well, so that's awesome. So my opponent is trying to seize on the chaos that he's created. He's going to charge forward with his men. He has a lot of these Italian spearmen initially, and here his crossbowmen are going to try and get in on the mix. But it's a bit too little too late. He's going to get some initial shots off. We can kind of watch that. So shots right into my knights, and that's going to start to sting. You can see them coming and starting to hit my units, so I'm going to pull them out. I'm losing a couple men. I really do want to rout the remainder of his horses here. So you can see that happening almost immediately just because I sacked everything. I'm going to be able to pull out with my units just at last moment and disengage with my cav and let these more hefty spearmen, hold their own. That's exactly what they're used for. So here comes my opponent, and he's kind of throwing everything into this battle. He seemed to be a newer player as well, so I'm pretty new to Mediveal II. But I still grasp most of the Total War mechanics. So you'll find that when you play Mediveal II, once you realize that cav are super powerful and you start to get a feel for the different faction balances, you'll be able to transition over to this game. But yeah, he did actually take good advantage of collapsing in on my guys. He's effectively routed the core of my units, but that's fine. I was never really anticipating using those guys for the main fight. So here I'm replacing them with the sturdier dismounted feudal knights. So here we go, a big bashing front in the center, and then my cav are helping to even out this fight, charging in the flanks. Some of my cav are engaging with his remaining feudal knights back here. This fight should go well. However, he does have supporting fire, but at least it's forcing these guys away from the main conflict area. My guys are starting to reform, And my own crossbowmen are now going to start forming up and shooting into this blob. But speaking of this blob, yeah, it's very hectic. Something you can also notice in Medieval II is where they first introduced the units getting sort of deteriorated through combat. So that's why you'll see some of these guys get bloody. As your guys take more hits and are in more and more combat, there'll actually be multiple skins that are applied to them. So that was really cool. Starting to see a lot of detail in the individual units come Medieval II. But yeah, the slaughter continues, and it's right in these types of blobs where your units will hold out for a while, and a well-placed cavalry charge will do a lot of work. My own cavalry units back here that I was telling you. Watch this. Even if they're peasant archers, point-blank shots right into my men is going to do a lot. I decide to wheel about. For some reason, they couldn't take out these peasant crossbowmen. I'm going to charge into his archers, and cavalry can be a bit gimmicky, as you're seeing here, but at least they're getting the job done. Over here, like I was saying, it's a big, just melee brawl, and some of my crossbowmen are just shooting up over the tops of these men into this blob, so I'm getting a good advantage. But I'm going to come in and strike with my cavalry through the back, and that'll be enough to shatter his men, so you'll see me doing that relatively soon. So that's kind of why you want to keep as many cav alive as possible, not only for their frontal charges that can outright shatter units, but also when you get these melee brawls, it's very, very, very important to have the cav in the back. Yeah, let's watch my guys here. I should be moving up, getting ready for the charge. Here we go. Tell him to charge in. So his men are just starting to waver. As they do that, my guys are going to lower their spears. Boom. And that's going to start shattering this entire front. Another cool mechanism they had was fighting to the death. If units are surrounded, and instead of routing, they'll keep fighting. So that's another cool mechanism. It has you have to think about how you're approaching your enemy, and if you're going to force them to fight to the death, because sometimes you want to leave an avenue of retreat just to mitigate your opponent's will to fight. But there we go. I'm crushing his men. He has a lot of these remaining archers and various troops up here. I decided not to chase just because he had the hill advantage. So most of my guys are going to turn about and reform. I'm going to send some of my sergeant spearmen after these guys. Keep engaging. But most of my forces I'm going to pull back just because he's reforming with these guys. And they would have been able to lay down a lot of fire on my men. So I didn't want to risk being spread out too much, so I pulled them back. Especially my last 3 remaining knights. These guys are going to be roaming around the battlefield trying to see what kills I can get. Not getting too close to that hill. My retreat, however, is going to allow most of his men to rally. But I figure, as long as I can get my men together, I think I have enough remaining men to take on his. It's just a matter of grouping them up. But you can just see the sheer amount of kills that you can get right in here. All the opponent's cavalry and then all his main infantry bodies basically clumping up here. Let's look at some of my guys in the aftermath of this fight. Like I was saying, you can see the skins. So various troops will have different amounts of damage dealt to them. Another cool thing they had in the game was when you could upgrade your guys. So if you got more armor, you would actually visibly see that. So it wouldn't just be a stat bonus. The more and more you upgraded your guys with armor, you would actually see them get better and better padding, then mail, then plate eventually. So it was a really cool way to individualize your armies and see that visual improvement. So I hope that's something they take to heart in the next iteration of Total War. But here we go. My main core here has rallied. And this is going to be basically the last 3 knights. They're going to be leading this assault, rallying the men, and they're going to be sending up this charge on the flank. What I'm doing over here is positioning my crossbowmen on this side. I'm just trying to draw as much fire as possible. I know his men are going to want to shoot at the first target they see, so I'd be more than happy to have him start shooting at my crossbowmen. I keep these guys here just to soak up the fire, and then I'm going to move up some of my guys just to have a better arc of fire. I'm starting to take a lot of volleys, but look at that in the background. Let's watch this charge. Almost looks like something out of Braveheart. But here goes the charge with all my men running up the hill. And you can see how none of them are taking fire from my opponent. So my bait has worked. You can see all the crossbow bolts actually shooting over to the wrong side of the battlefield. So this is going to allow a huge charge up. And here is actually looks like one of my generals leading the fight right through here. His men are going to be mostly an all-out retreat. They're going to try and hold this, especially with the spear militia coming in through the back, but I'm going to be able to engage with some of them. Wow. Kill animations are not quite there yet, but I think Mediveal II was the first one where they really introduced it, so you can see some reaction of units to being attacked like that. It's not quite choreographed, or the units don't quite lock on, but it's you still see a good display of that the motion capturing. And here comes my general to help wrap up the fight. That's going to be it. I hope to see you guys online. I have a bunch more of these. I'll probably just throw them out in quick succession. And I'm really liking Mediveal II with the amount of players online and just the switch of pace, or not pace, the change in pace. The speed of the game is really fun, and the variety of units, I really like it. Anyways, I will see you guys in the next battle. Thanks so much.